In the heart of my childhood neighborhood lay an eerie relic, an abandoned elementary school. It stood as a haunting reminder of better days long past, its windows shattered like fractured memories. But on one fateful Saturday night, curiosity led my friend Ryan and me into its decaying halls, igniting a journey that would plunge us into a chilling encounter we'd never forget. The neighborhood wasn't affluent, it was a place where people settled because they had to, not because they wanted to. Abandoned houses and struggling businesses painted the landscape, whispering tales of forgotten dreams. Despite its desolation, it was our playground, where every empty building held the promise of adventure. The decrepit school, with its ominous aura, beckoned to us like a siren's call. Ignoring the warning signs, we embarked on a trek through the woods, our destination shrouded in darkness and uncertainty. As we scaled the chain-link fence guarding the school, a sense of foreboding gripped us, but curiosity propelled us forward. Entering through a shattered window, we stepped into the desolate corridors, our footsteps echoing like whispers in the silence. The air was heavy with the weight of memories long abandoned, and a sense of unease crept over us. Yet we pressed on, drawn deeper into the labyrinth of decay. As we ventured further, the building seemed to come alive with unsettling sounds, a symphony of creaks and groans that set our nerves on edge. But we brushed it off as the building settling, oblivious to the darkness that lurked within. Then, in a moment that shattered our illusion of safety, a deafening thud pierced the silence, freezing us in our tracks. Panic seized us as we exchanged fearful glances, the realization dawning that we were not alone. But before we could flee, a sinister presence made itself known. In the dim light, we beheld a ghastly sight, a gaunt figure lurking in the shadows, its eyes burning with an unholy fire. Clad in tattered rags, it brandished a gleaming object in its hand, its intent chilling us to the core. With horror etched on our faces, we stumbled backward, our hearts pounding in terror. In a desperate bid for escape, we bolted down the hallway, the echoes of our footsteps drowned out by the pounding of our hearts. Behind us, the air filled with the metallic clang of a weapon being hurled, followed by a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the darkness. With adrenaline coursing through our veins, we leaped through the nearest window, the shards of glass biting into our flesh as we fled into the night. Gasping for breath, we raced through the shadows, the specter of our encounter haunting our every step. It wasn't until we reached the safety of home that we dared to piece together the horrors we had witnessed. The figure in the darkness, its malevolent gaze fixed upon us, had wielded a weapon with lethal intent. Had we lingered a moment longer or failed to notice its presence, our fate might have been sealed within those forsaken walls. As dawn broke on the horizon, casting its golden light upon the world, we emerged from the shadows forever changed. The abandoned school, once a beacon of childhood curiosity, now loomed in our minds as a symbol of unspeakable terror. And though we had escaped with our lives, the memory of that harrowing night would haunt us for years to come. In the hazy glow of adolescence, the world around us seemed to shrink, confined by the boundaries of school and parental oversight. We craved freedom, an escape from the prying eyes that seemed to follow our every move. And so, between the ages of 14 and 16, my friends and I found solace in the shadows, seeking refuge in the forgotten corners of our suburban landscape. Our usual haunts were fast food joints or the secluded pockets of woods near the park, places where we could be alone, away from the watchful gaze of authority figures. But as the nights grew longer and colder, our options dwindled. Winter break arrived, and with it, a new challenge: where could we go when everywhere else closed its doors? It was during one of these aimless wanderings that JT, always the instigator, proposed a solution: his parents' old farmhouse. He'd mentioned it before, but we had never paid much attention until that fateful night. With a reckless abandon that only teenagers possess, we piled into JT's car and set off into the darkness, guided only by his vague memories and the promise of adventure. The farmhouse lay nestled in the heart of the countryside, a forgotten relic of a bygone era. Its wooden fence stood as a sentinel, barring entry to all but the most determined trespassers. Ignoring the no trespassing sign, we scaled the fence and ventured into the unknown. As we trudged along the overgrown path, JT regaled us with tales of his grandparents, the original owners of the farmhouse. But as the outline of the house emerged from the darkness, any sense of nostalgia was overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of foreboding. The farmhouse loomed before us, a decrepit shell of its former self, its once grand facade now crumbling into disrepair. Undeterred, we pressed on, pushing open the creaking door and stepping into the unknown. The air inside was thick with dust and decay, our feeble phone flashlights struggling to pierce the darkness. But despite the neglect, the farmhouse seemed strangely untouched, as if frozen in time. Splitting up, we began to explore, our footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. It was then that I saw him, a figure, tall and gaunt, lurking in the shadows. Panic seized me, and I called out to my friends, but they were nowhere to be found. Alone and terrified, I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. Turning the corner, I found them, bathed in the sickly glow of our phone lights, their faces pale with fear. And there, at the edge of the darkness, stood the figure, watching us with hollow eyes. Without a word, we fled, our footsteps echoing through the empty halls as we raced for the safety of the outside world. Back in the open air, we gasped for breath, our hearts still racing from the encounter. What had we seen? A squatter, perhaps, or something far more sinister. We would never know for sure, for JT never told his parents, and the farmhouse remained untouched, a haunting reminder of that fateful night. To this day, the memory lingers, a chilling reminder of the thin veil that separates the known from the unknown. And as I look back on that night, I can't help but wonder what other secrets lie hidden in the darkness, waiting to be discovered. A year ago, unharmed but thoroughly shaken, I embarked on what I thought would be a rejuvenating camping trip. It had been far too long since my last venture into the wild, and the itch to reconnect with nature had become unbearable. Finally, I managed to wrangle some time off work and hastily planned a getaway. The destination? A secluded mountain, a mere 2-hour drive from my mundane city life. As I approached the mountain, excitement mingled with a hint of apprehension. This wasn't a tourist hotspot, it was a forgotten gem, tucked away from the prying eyes of civilization. Parking options were scarce, but I found a nondescript patch of dirt and left my car behind, eager to delve into the wilderness. The trail beckoned, promising solitude and serenity. Little did I know, it would lead me to a place far more unsettling than I ever imagined. The path wound through dense forest, the canopy overhead casting eerie shadows. Despite the overgrown foliage, I pressed on, fueled by a primal desire to escape the monotony of everyday life. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon the camping grounds, a desolate clearing, untouched by human presence for who knows how long. Nature had reclaimed its territory, swallowing everything in its path. Ignoring the nagging feeling of unease, I pitched my tent and settled in for the night. As darkness descended, I set about gathering firewood, hoping to ward off the encroaching chill. But my efforts were interrupted by a peculiar discovery, a narrow footpath veering off into the woods, distinct from the main trail. Against my better judgment, curiosity got the better of me, and I followed the winding track into the unknown. Each step filled me with dread, the silence of the forest punctuated only by the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. And then, amidst the gnarled trees, I saw it, an abandoned cabin, cloaked in shadows and decay. It stood as a silent sentinel, its weathered facade a testament to years of neglect. Venturing closer, I peered through the open doorway, my heart pounding in my chest. But before I could explore further, a voice shattered the silence, chilling me to the bone. Leave. Now the command was clear, authoritative, tinged with a palpable hostility. Startled, I turned to face the source, a man, his features obscured by darkness, standing just beyond the cabin. Without a second thought, I obeyed, retreating into the safety of the night. But even as I fled, his words echoed in my mind, leaving me with more questions than answers. Back at my campsite, fear gnawed at my insides, driving me to abandon my refuge and flee into the unknown. With only a feeble flashlight to guide me, I stumbled through the darkness, haunted by the memory of that encounter. What did the man want? Why was he there, in the depths of the forest, guarding a dilapidated cabin? And most unsettling of all, was I truly alone in those woods? As I drove away, the questions lingered, unresolved. And though I may never know the truth, one thing remains certain: some mysteries are best left undisturbed, hidden in the shadows of the unknown.